So this is advanced MA. This is advanced MA. And I was saying that for this advanced MA, those are doing management accounting in intermediate level, we call them application of marginal costing. But those who are doing advanced, we call them non-routine decision. We call them non-routine decision. Now, let's just give small notes, just small notes, for us to move on. Now, these are the decisions. These are the decisions. These are the decisions which are not frequently, which are not frequently made, which are not frequently made in a company, which are not frequently made in a company, but have an impact, in the entire company. But they have an impact in the entire company. So we are saying these are the decisions which are not made regularly. These are the decisions which are not made regularly or are not made frequently, but they affect or they have an impact on the entire company. So those decisions, they include the following. They include now those doing advanced MA, tell me what are those decisions from your previous level? Those doing advanced MA, I know you know those. What are those decisions? So tell me, what are examples of those decisions? Yes? Yes, called Palmer. What are some examples of those applications of marginal costing that you did in MA? Ama usahau?
JIT, just in time philosophy.
Ingine?
Make or buy.
Yes. So we have product mix, decisions, or we call them the limiting factor. The limiting factors. Number 2, let us talk about throughput accounting. Throughput accounting. Number 3, let us talk about spatial pricing decision. Spatial pricing decision. So they call them spatial order. Spatial order decision. Number 4, make or buy decisions. Drop or retain. Drop or retain. Stroke or continue or discontinue. Or discontinue or cessation of a product line. Of a product line. Number 6, talk about replacement analysis. but this one is not common. That one is not common. Now, you need to know the concept of relevant and irrelevant cost. Let's talk about relevant and irrelevant cost. Now, when you are doing this decision will always include, you will always factor in the relevant cost only. Now, relevant cost will always be used in this concept. Irrelevant cost will never be used in this concept. Though you can use, but it is not that important for decision making. So irrelevant cost is not very important in this application of marginal costing. So it uses the relevant cost, and the relevant cost in most cases, they are the variable cost. That's why we're talking about marginal costing. So remember, when I talk about marginal costing, we're talking about the variable costs that are used in production. And therefore, this concept will always use relevant cost and ignore irrelevant. And ignore the irrelevant cost. Now let us say what is relevant cost. Relevant cost, we had talked about it previously, but because of those in advanced level, maybe they don't remember, let's just remind them. So, but for those doing MA, we had talked about it. So these are costs. These are costs. These are costs which have the ability, These are costs which have the ability to influence decisions. These are costs which have the ability to influence the decision. And then we say they must be considered. They must be considered when making. They must be considered when making decision. When making decision, for the decision to be successful, for the decision to be successful. So we say that these are the costs which must be considered when making the decision, for that decision to be successful, for that decision to be successful. And example of that cost, is the variable cost, i.e. variable cost, cost. Or you can also say incremental cost. This is another one. You have differential cost and many other. Number 2, so we are saying this cost must be considered when making these decisions. Now we have the irrelevant cost, and these are costs which do not have the ability to influence decisions. So we say these are costs which do not have the ability to influence decisions. So these are costs which do not have the ability to influence the decision. Now, a good example, so i.e., so you just put the word not upper. So these are costs that do not have the ability to influence any decision in any manner. So they are costs which do not have the ability to influence decisions, i.e., talk of fixed Cost. We talk about general cost. You can talk about sunk cost. I know you know what are those sunk costs or historical cost or historical cost. ETC or the historical cost. Those are the examples that we can talk about. That we can talk about. I don't want to talk so much. I don't want to talk so much about the direct material, direct labor. You know, those are variable costs. Overhead, production. Some are variable, some are fixed. So you need to remove them. So if you have fixed component in the variable production, you need to remember to remove them so that you can include it in the marginal costing and so on. Now that is not my idea. So my idea is to go directly to number one, product mix decision. And you'll be ready. Maswali zitakam. To be ready. So product mix decision. So they call them the limiting factor decision. Limiting factor decision. Some call them optimal mix. Optimal mix decisions. Now this is a very common in advanced level and intermediate. So this one is very, very common. It was there in advanced level last sitting. It was also tested in intermediate level last sitting. So they both appeared in both sittings. So they both appeared in both sittings. So it's a very important concept. Now, let us see what this addition are. These are the decision made. These are the decision made. These are decision made. These are the decision made. These are the decision made. Made, not make. Made in a situation where the resources are scarce. In a situation where resources are scarce. Where resources are scarce, to determine which product. To determine which product. To determine which product and by how many units to be produced. And by how many units it should be produced. It should be produced to generate maximum contribution. So it's a concept which tries to tell us how much units are we supposed to produce and by how much in order to generate maximum return. In order to generate maximum return. In order to generate the maximum return. Then allow me to wrap the upper part. Allow me to wrap the upper part. We also add something more because we are in number one. product mix. So I've just said that you allow me to grab the upper part. And then we write something also. Okay. Now that's right. You say that the number of product and units, the number of products and units, the number of products and the units that will be produced. That will be produced, the number of product and units that will be produced, we generate. We generate maximum contribution generate maximum contribution to generate maximum contribution is called optimal product mix. Optimal product mix or optimal production mix. Production mix. Now, the number of products and the units that can be produced to maximize or to generate. So the number of products and the units that will be produced to generate the maximum contribution is called the optimal product mix or the optimal production mix or the optimal production mix or the optimal production mix. That one is okay. Scarce resources are known as limiting factor. This will say scarce resources are known as the limiting factor. Are known as the limiting factor or the key factor or the key factor or principal budget factor or the principal budget factor. Methods. So we have method used. Yeah. Method used. Number of product produced. Number of produced. Number of products. Product produced. The number of key factor. So the first one is the most common. The first method, which is called the first principle. First principle. Number two, advanced. First principle. I think I saw this one, intermediate level. I think there's a question concerning that one, intermediate. The last one, I've never seen it. Linear programming. Linear programming. At least one product. At least one product. To that case, we have at least one product. For advanced, we have only one product. At least one product. Number of key factors, only one. More than one. Sasa hapa ndio shida. So when you have more than one key factor, more than one. So this one, where we have more than one key factor, the problem becomes difficult. And also this one, more than one. Na but some during the programming ni rahisi kwa sababu ni zile za tukumbuka kwa wakati tulikuwa tunafanya QA when we were doing programming we had constant functions zilikuwa more than 3, zingine ziko na 3. So those constants zilikuwa hivyo haina shida. But when we are doing using this one, advanced first principle, then that one becomes an hectic. Now that one becomes a problem. Now is my screen clear? Ni kama inapotea or I don't know what is the problem. Sawa. Ndio maana yake munaona. Okay, let's move on. Allow me to move on. Allow me to move on. Allow me to move on. And first principle, that is what we shall concentrate. That is our first principle. That one will be what we shall focus on. That will be our focus today. And this time allow throughput accounting. Can also do it because haina mambo mingi. It is the same. It is the same concept. First principle method. And we say just a minute. Now, first principle method. Now we say uses. It uses contribution method. It uses contribution method. And we know contribution is equal to selling price minus PV. So we know contribution is equal to selling price. So contribution is equal to selling price minus variable cost. Now our P is selling price per unit, and V is the variable cost per unit. Is the variable cost per unit. Now steps. Number one, talk of compute contribution margin. Compute contribution margin per unit. Compute contribution margin per unit of each product. So compute contribution margin per unit for each product. For each product. That's number one. That one is number one. Number two. Identify the units key factor. Identify units key factor. Identify units key factor required to make one. Required to make 1 unit of each product. 1 unit of each product. Number three. Number three. Compute contribution margin by unit factor. Per unit factor of each. Compute contribution margin per unit factor of the key factor. Of the key factor of each product. Number four. Rank the products. Then the last one, once you rank the product, allocate available units. Allocate available units. Allocate available units of the key factor. According to the key factor. According to the rank, sorry. According to the rank. According to the rank. According to the rank. So according to the rank. Just a moment, kindly. Just a moment. And so on. So we have 5 procedures. Now let us open our past paper. Kindly let us open our past paper. We shall start from intermediate. Now, make sure you have a past paper for intermediate level. kindly make sure you have a past paper from intermediate level. I think we had one at the shared. Now last sitting, let's go to intermediate level, August 2024. August 2024. August 2024. So AMA, let's start with AMA kwanza, after Majana advance, baadaye. Now August 2024, so we remind ourselves how we were doing these questions. So this is for intermediate level, we are doing then data, we shall introduce question from advanced. So open intermediate level for last sitting. So mwenye ako nayo atume kwa group ya advance mwenye ako nayo yani atume mwenye ako nayo atume ndio wenye wana maybe wanaweza pata, but for intermediate level I think they have them. For previous lesson we also did some questions from intermediate, so I believe you have them. So intermediate level. Let us start with that question that was tested in last sitting. Let us start with that question. That was tested in last sitting. Stuff. Okay. Now let me read the question. And this is what the question is saying. That so August 2024, number 1C. August 2024, number 1C. And it says Medico Ltd is a pharmaceutical company which manufactures 3 types of medicine, namely alpha, beta, and zeta, using absorption costing. The following information relates to the statement of operation. We have selling price, we have direct material, we have direct labor, which is 2 steel and semi-steel. We have fixed overhead, which we have it in note 1 also. We have the total cost, net profit. We also have additional information. Fixed cost is 1450 per annum. Variable overhead are absorbed into production rates at 100%, labor and 50%. Semi-variable. The variable overhead have not been absorbed in the profit statement above. That one is okay. There is maximum of 28,000 skilled labor. Number 4, deficit units can be outsourced from a supplier as follows. We have those if you want to outsource. Required, compute the shortfalls in skilled hours. Number 2, the optimal production mix. Then the maximum net available based on the information into above. Now this question is very easy. This question is very, very easy. Now let us see what is the requirement for that question. Let us see how we're supposed to do that question. So that one is intermediate level. So tunasema this one is MA. So August 2024, question number 1B. So this one is from MA. That one is from MA. So if you don't have that question, go to chop.com. chop.co.ke. You can download the past paper very easily. If you don't have it, you can go to Chopi and you download it. Now, for us, we are interested with doing the question. Now, the first step. Now, the first step that we said, let us go back to our steps. Contribution margin per unit. Now, step number one, we need to determine contribution margin per unit. Now, from the question, we have the product alpha, beta, zeta. Alpha, beta, and zeta. Alpha, beta, and zeta. So we start with the selling price per unit. So selling price per unit. From the question, you can see that the selling price is per unit 595. We have 595. 595. We also have 870. We have 870. And the other one is 1095. 1095. 1095. Now we are supposed to less variable cost per unit. We are supposed to get variable cost per unit. The first one in Mona hapo, we have direct material. We have direct material. The direct material. In Mona we have direct labor, which is skilled and semi-skilled. And then there's another information in Mona about variable cost. Ametuambia variable overhead. Variable overhead, which also relates to, it also relates skilled and semi-skilled. So with that one, once we get those items, then we can get our contribution. So to answer direct material. So direct material, we're going to 115, 140. So we are supposed to less 115, 140, na 220. Tuende kwa labor. So 115, 140, 220. 115, 140, na 220. Tukienda kwa skills, 80, 160. You have 80, 160, na 240. 80, 160, na 240. 80, 160. And then tunaenda kwa huu mwingine skilled. Remember it's per unit. It is 60, 120, 110. 60, 60, 120, and 110. Now, let's go to variable overhead. Now, variable overhead, wanasema information number two. Information number two. Variable overhead are absorbed in production at a rate of 100% for skilled. So 100% for skilled. So 100% for skilled. So ya kwanza hapa itakuwa ni 100% of 80, which is 80. Kumaanisha ni 80, 100% of skilled. Haya, next ni 100% of 160. Kumaanisha itakuwa ni ngapi? 160. Na wengine itakuwa ni 240. What about semi-skilled? So variable overhead for semi-skilled. Now variable overhead for semi-skilled is 50%. 50% of semi-skilled. Now 50% of semi-skilled. Tunaanza na kwanza 50% of the semi-skilled ni 60. Bei hapa itakuwa ni 30. Then 50% of kwani imendaje? Hii ilikuwa ni percent of 240. Apply 240. So 50% of 120. Hizo ni sema 60. And then 50% of 110, which is 55. Now we shall get our contribution margin per unit. Contribution margin per unit. Now, give me the figure. That is step number one. That is step number one. So give me the figures. Give me the figures. Give me the figures. So figures ni ngapi? Hiyo kalkula nimeitupa wapi? Ndio naitafuta. Nimeirusha wapi? Okay, itakuwa ngapi? Kama hiyo kalkula. Nimeiona. Nimeiona poleni. Tunasema ni 595 minus 115 minus 80 minus 60 minus 80 minus 30. Confirm. Give it to 30. It's 70 minus 140 minus 160.
Zeta ni to 30.
Zeta. Minus 160 minus 140 minus 120 minus 160 minus 60. What is it to 30? Hizi ni maajabu. Sorry to 30. Sema to confirm. Niajishuku hapo.
Iko sawa.
Iko sawa. So that's step number one. Step number two. What was the step number two from our question? Tulisema step two. Step two, if you go to the question wanatuambia identify the unit key factor. Now, the unit key factor is the one which is scarce. Now, from the question, which unit is scarce? Now, the first thing you identify the unit factor, the unit key factor. Now, from the question, we can see, let's go back to the question to one. Now, from the question, it is clear. If you go to the question, it's clear that information number 3, the maximum, there is a maximum of 28,000 skilled labor. Now, labor is 28,000 available, meaning we cannot use more than the skilled. So, skilled is the key factor. Skilled labor is the limiting factor, meaning we need to make use of it very well because we can only use up to how many hours? So those are it's limited to 28,000 hours. No, we cannot exit that one. Now let's compute alpha. So the key unit factor for alpha. Tukimaliza alpha twende kwa beta. Tutafanyia beta hapa. Then zeta hapa. So we are supposed to compute key factor to make one unit. Now, tumejua, let's go to our question. Tukienda pale kwa swali tumeambiwa our skilled labor ni 80 and then 80 per hour. Umeona? Hapa kwa skilled wametuambia it is 80 per hour. Now, they want for one unit. Now, itakuwa ni 80 over 80. You get 1 unit per hour. 1 unit per hour. Now, tukienda kwa huu next ni 160. We divide it with that 80 niko hapo. Itakuwa ni 2 units per hour. Then zeta aende mbele kidogo. 2 units per hour. Atina kwa mwingine ni 240 divided by 80, which itakuwa ni 3 units per hour. That is step number 2. That is step number 2. Hapo kuna swali because tumechukua ya skill kwa sababu hiyo ndio iko limited. Tumechukua ya skill because that is what is limited. So 1 unit per hour, 2 units per hour, and that will require 3 units per hour. Now, step number 3. Contribution margin. Contribution margin to key factor. To key factor, how do we find it? Sasa ya kwanza alpha. Kuna alpha. Unachukua contribution yake which is 230. You divide the 1 unit this one which is equals to 230. Unaenda kwa beta. Ngapi? 230 divided by 2. 230 divided by 2. Now 230 divided by 2, 115. So unachukua contribution, you divide it with the unit key factor. Unachukua contribution per unit, you divide it with the unit key factor. You divide it with the unit key factor. So 230 divided by 1, 230. Divided by 2, 115. Then 230 divided by 3. Divided by 3 ni 76.67. Then number 4, we said you do what we call you rank. You do ranking. Now you rank the one. So the first rank is the one with the highest contribution to key factor. The first one inakuwa the one with the highest contribution per unit factor. Now from this question, the one with the highest ni huyu 230. So from rank number 1. Mwenye kona kubwa next 115. So number 2, then zeta number 3. Uko sawa mpaka hapo? Are we okay up that point? Are we fine? Now step number 4, we allocate, which is the last step. Step number 4, we allocate. We allocate. Nataka kusave with the contribution because I will need them later. Second is the vote. I need those contribution data. I don't want to do away with them. Now this final step is very, very important. This final step is very, very important. Now number 4, we do allocation. Now, but before I do allocation, we need to find the shortfall if we have them. Shortfall hours. Now, for shortfall hours is equal to available minus required. So available hours minus required hours. Now, let us compute from the question. Remember that we have the available hours. As how much? How many hours? Available hours. Wametuambia ni 28,000 hours. Now let us compute required hours. Now for required hours, we will check the units from the question. How many units for each? How many units for each product? Now the first one is Z. Pale chini kwa hiyo statement, before additional information, we have the units, maximum units. You have 3,000. So 3,000 units, and we know 1 unit requires for A requires 1 hour. Tena kwa B, ya pili, we have 5,000 units. 5,000 units, And we know 1 unit require the upper 2 units per hour. 2 times 2. Haya. The last one inachukua 3 units per hour. How many units do we have? Kwa sababu hivyo naona tuko na 6,500. 6,500 multiplied by 3. Now what's required? Now 3,000 times 1, 5,000 times 2, 6,500 times 3. Now we require 32,500 hours. But the available hours that we have is 28. Now meaning we have a shortfall that atuna. So we need to make use of this because we cannot exceed 28,000. Now what's our shortfall? So what are we missing? Our shortfall hours in this case is 32,500 minus 28,000. Now we are missing 4,500 hours. This is what we are missing. So this one is what we are missing. Now hii contribution, haina shida hata nivute. Ndio tulisema ni to that. So contribution you said into 30. I might not require it because naweza cram hiyo. Ranking, for now for ranking wacha niwache. I want to use the ranking. In case unakuta kitu unahitaji, mtaniambia ilikuwa ngapi. Now let's do allocation. Once we calculate the shortfall, now we can do allocation. So this is the table that you can use. So we shall be making use of this table. So the first thing that you do, you start with the rank. You start with the rank. Kama inaonekana, let me check if it is visible from that point. It's fine. Hata ningerudisha nyuma kidogo. Nikaanzia mahali hapo. Rank. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Then our product. So the first product is alpha as rank 1. Alpha. Number 2, uliona ni beta according to contribution to key factor. Then number 3, right? You are going to nani? Alikuwa anaitwa
Zeta.
Zeta. Nimekosa hiyo jina hapo. So Zeta. Once you do that one, next maximum demand. Na tumeshaona maximum demand ndio hizi hapa. Kwa kwanza alikuwa ni 3,000. Kwa pili alikuwa ni 5,000. Huyo mwingine ni 6,500. That is the maximum demand or the maximum we can solve. That is the maximum demand from the question actually. It's direct. Now once you get the maximum demand, key factor per unit. Key factor per unit. Tukaita toshini swali yetu. Key factor per unit. Allow me to do this. Tumeshajua shortfall ni ngapi? Then vute hapa juu. Tumeshajua shortfall ni 4,500. Shortfall ni 4,500. The difference between the two. Let me make use of this one. Tunasema key factor per unit. So tunasema key factor per unit. Ilikuwa ngapi? Nilivuta. Ilikuwa hapa ya kwanza ilikuwa nakumbuka ilikuwa 1. Sivyo? Ya pili ilikuwa ngapi? 1, 2. Na mwingine ilikuwa 3. Correct? Is that correct? And remember it's unit per hour. Remember it's per hour. then required. Kuja hapa required hours. Let us say hours required. So 3,000 times 1 is 3,000. 4,000 times 2 is 10,000. 6,500 times 3, 6,500 times 3. 6,500 times 3 itakuwa ngapi? 19,500. Kwa sababu mpaka hapo then tunaenda available. Hours available. Hours available. Now the maximum hours available, they hapa. Can you see it? 28,000. Now 28,000 is the unit available. Now we allocate the first one. We allocate 3,000. Now out of the hours available, let us allocate 3,000. Tutabaki na ngapi? 28,000 minus 3,000. So to allocate 3,000, tutabaki na 25,000 hours. 25,000 hours. Now let's allocate 10,000. So tutabaki na ngapi? To allocate 10,000 kwa 25,000, tutabaki na 15,000. Now ukiangalia 19 is more than 15, meaning we cannot use 19,500. We can only use how many hours? 15,000, because we cannot use more than 15,000 in zeta. In zeta. Tuko sana hadi hapo. Tulisema tuko na demand, tuko na key factor na hours required. So 3,000 times 1, 3,000. 5,000 times 2, 10,000. 65 times 3, 15. So these are the total hours required. For alpha required 3,000 hours, beta requires 10,000 hours, and zeta requires 19,500 hours. But the maximum hours that we have is 28,000. So the sum of 28,000, we allocate the 3,000 first. Yeah, alpha. Now alpha, we allocate everything. So alpha, we allocate everything. Now let's allocate the 3,000 hours, 3,000 times 1. This one, we allocate this one, everything. So all hours will be allocated to 28. Now we shall remain with 25,000 hours. Now 25,000 hours, we allocate the next hours. Beta requires 10,000 hours. We allocate all the 10,000 hours from 25. We're back in at 15. Now 15, we're back in. Let us allocate 19,500. We cannot allocate 19,500 to 15,000 because I've been mingi than this one. Meaning, for zeta, we can only use 15,000 hours. We cannot exceed more than 15,000. So kumaanisha hapa, we can only use up to 15,000 hours. Now with that one, let us see units. Units are produced. Units produced. Now, in this case, the units in the demand. In this case, because we have allocated every hour, we shall produce all the 3,000 units. So 3,000 units. Now, in the other side, 10,000, we have allocated all the 10,000 units, meaning we shall produce all the 5,000 units. Now, in this case, we cannot produce 6,500 units because for us to produce 6,500 units, we require many hours? We required 19,500 hours. But we don't have 19,500. We have 15. Now, how many units do we need to produce? How many units? So what you do ni rahisi. Unachukua hiyo hours zilibaki, we divide with the number of the key factor, which is 5,000. So the number of units to be produced here is 5,000 units. How do you get it? Unachukua total hours, which in the we divide it with the key factor, so 3 hours per unit. We shall get 5,000 hours. Now ndio hiyo hapo. So you need to produce 5,000 units, not hours. 5,000 units. So these one are the units to be produced. So unachukua the hours yenye ilibaki divided by 3. Ama uchukue huyu represent huyu, what about 15? Itakupatia the same answer. That I think can also give the same answer. Now, if 19,500 is equal to 65, what about 15? You can also give the same answer. So 15,000 times 6500 divided by 19,500. Yes, 5,000 units. But this one is the best one. So what remained, we will divide it by the key factor we shall get. Now, what's our optimal mix now from the question? Now, the optimal mix is this. Now, this is the optimal mix. Optimal mix. Now, optimal mix. Now, tunasema tunaanza na alpha. So alpha, alpha, we need to produce how many units? 3,000 units. Beta, 5,000 units. Zeta, now zeta, I will produce 5,000 units. 6,500. So zeta is produce 6,000 units kwa sababu the hours will not allow. Now, but the hours available will only allow for 5,000 units. Now that is the optimal mix. Optimal product mix. That is the optimal product mix. Let's go to the question now. Let us go to the question. Now, before we go to the question, another thing. Net profit of the optimal mix. How do you get the net profit of optimal mix? Tunaanza na kwanza. Tunaanza na contribution. Contribution. Now, mliambia contribution to 30 zote. So ya A, units ni 3,000. You multiply with the contribution yake equal to 30. B ni 5,000. You multiply with the contribution margin. Then also zeta 5,000 times to 30. Then you less fixed cost. Now, from the question, what's our fixed cost? So 3,000 plus 5,000 plus 5,000 times to 30. This one is 2,990,000. Then we less our fixed cost. Let's go to our question. From our question, our fixed cost the 1.4, 1450. 1450 million. Now our net profits. Net profits. So minus 1450,000. So this is equal to 1540. Adabu tuko sawa? Any question? Yes, Lilian, unasemaje? Yes, Lilian, sijakusikia.
Iko sawa.
Yes. Now,
Na mkuu,
yes, mkuu.
na hizo deficient units zinakuwa outsourced na hiyo cost.
Now, kama mkuu umetuambia mambo na special orders. The special order tungetumia. So hiyo inatumika only for special order. Now for optimal mix we ignore. Because
asa tuitumii ku calculate net profit.
Yo hapana. We are not consider. Let's go to the question.
Sini cost.
Yes, it's a cost. Hapo anasema deficit units can be outsourced from a chemist. Now, tujiulize Do you have a deficit in alpha?
Mm-mm.
Do you have a deficit in alpha?
No.
Beta?
No.
Aya, zeta?
Yes.
Now, unasema tuiweke kama cost. Yes, yeah, we actually can put it as a cost.
Si wametupea.
Yes, you add this cost hapo. Actually, yes. Now we have a deficit how much units? So 65?
1,500.
Yes, 1,500. Now this one we need to incur additional cost. Times cost yake unasema ni ngapi? The one they can access outside or 895. So add hapa. Add it here. And then you shall get the new net profit. Iko sawa. That one is fine. That one is okay. So iko sawa. Iko sawa?
Iko sawa.
Now, what is the time? Hii simu yangu inadanganya hapa. Now, do we have any other question in intermediate? I think the rest of the question in the intermediate, we can meet and do it together in another class. So the rest of the question, tutakuja tufanye pamoja in our normal class. Now,
Okay, if I excuse
Yes.
me,
Yes, yes.
if I may, we are lessing fixed cost and we add 1,500 times 895. We are adding 1,500 times 895.
Eh.
Yeah, we add. We add.
100. Unajua venye imetoka?
Eh,
Okay.
Na huyu mwingine Zach.
Yes, nimeona.
Yes, that deficit more ni 4. Or it's a cost. So they need to find a way to compensate your units in your miss. So they need to buy it outside. Now, if they go to buy that labor outside, then kwa itakuwa an extra cost. Sivyo? Because they need it. So they don't have the capacity. So they need to borrow it out from outside or to buy it from outside. So call that a cost. Are we okay? Teko sawa?
Yes, we are okay.
Yes, now let me introduce this concept number.
No, explain.
Explain where.
Hapo kwa hiyo additional cost.
Now, wamesema pale any deficit they will need to buy it from outside. Sivyo? Now, any deficit they need to buy it from outside. Now, we saw that this person Zeta, for Zeta, they need they want 90,500 hours. Now, but the maximum they have is 15,000 hours. Now, the extra hours they need to buy it from outside. Now, this 15 hours is approximately to how many units? The one you wanna miss. So 15,000 divided by 3.5. Not the one they are missing. The one available. The one available 15,000 hours is approximately to 5,000 units. But remember, they need how many? How many? They need 19,500 hours, which is equivalent to how many units? 6,500. Meaning they can only produce for 5,000 units and not 65. Now, the extra in your miss, they need to purchase it from outside. So watatumia the labor yao within the company. Nakumbuka hizi labor alikuwa na computer our is not included. It's not included, and therefore they need to buy it from outside. Now, for them to buy it from outside, it will be a cost for them because they need to buy it. Now, wametupatia the price of each to be bought outside. Now, we only had Zeta, the one had the ilikuwa na deficit, which is 1,500 units. They walikuwa na miss. So this 1,500 units, they need to buy it from outside at how much? 895. Now, that one will become a cost to them. So tunasema kwa ni cost because they are purchasing. So it's a purchase cost. So that one will be a cost.
So my question is,
Yes.
are we adding? So we are supposed to less, or we are supposed to add from contribution, or we are supposed to add fixed cost?
Contribution.
Ndio tuless kwa hiyo. Tunafaa kwa
fixed cost, then you less kwa contribution so that you pate profit. Itakuwa hapa itakuwa hivi 27,92,500. So that profit yake ni hivi 197,500. Hivyo. So what you are supposed to do, unachukua fixed cost, you add the purchases to form this total cost. Then unaangalia revenue yake, una minus hiyo cost. So that you get the profit. This one is a cost. Hiyo kwa sawa? Tuko sawa hapo CJ?
Ni sawa.
Yes. Now let us introduce the last item, then the rest we shall do them tomorrow. So tomorrow, watu wa MA pia, you need to join because this concept are the same. You also need to join tomorrow from 9 kama kawaida to 12. Now, let me introduce another concept, then the rest tutamalizia kesho. So this topic lazima iishe
9 in the morning.
Yes.
Okay.
Early in the morning. Morning. Now let's introduce the second one. I'll have the rest. We try and do them tomorrow. Now throughput accounting. Na nimeamua kufunza hii kwa sababu ni related na tumetoka kufanya. Iko tuna tofauti kidogo sana. The differences ni kidogo sana. Now, what is this throughput accounting? Now, for throughput accounting, it's a concept that uses material cost as the only variable cost. So it's a concept that uses material cost as the only variable cost. We say in throughput, accounting, material cost are regarded material costs are regarded as the only expense, as the only expense which is variable. So in throughput accounting, material costs are the only expense which are regarded as variable costs. Then we say the rest of procedures are the same as the optimal production mix decision. Now let us use that question for MA. Nimetoka kufanya because you are familiarized with. Nimetoka kufanya sai August 2024, which number 1B. Now assume they were telling us to use the assume they were telling us to determine the optimal product mix using throughput accounting, and not the optimal production mix. So assume the story says, use throughput accounting to determine the optimal product mix. Use throughput accounting to determine the optimal mix. Now, kama kawaida, step number one, we determine contribution. So we have alpha, zeta, beta, and then we have zeta. So we start with the selling price per unit. Now, your selling price is up 595. We have 595. Then 870. 870. 870. Then 1095. Now we only less material, direct material cost. Less direct material cost. Now from our question, what's our direct material cost? 115. 115. 115. 140 na 220. 140 na 220. Now contribution per unit. So that is the only defaulting. The rest, yeah, procedure the same. 595 minus 115 is 480. 870 divided by 140. Sorry, not divide, minus 730. 1095 minus 220, which is 875. Step number 2, the limiting factor. Limiting factor, and we know our limiting factor is skilled labor. Skilled labor, and we know available shortfall. What about our shortfall? Anyway, we don't need the muscle. The skilled labor. Now we need the limiting factor per unit hour. Now ya kwanza ya alpha I think ilikuwa 1. Ilikuwa 1, sivyo? Ilikuwa 80 over 80, which is 1 unit per hour. Aya. Hiyo mwingine I think ilikuwa 120 over 80. Not 180. Ilikuwa ngapi? Kanyera munisaidie bana. 160. 160, which is 2 units per hour. Na ya tatu, I think it was 240 over 80, 3 units per hour. Now number 3, contribution margin to key factor. Tunaanza na 480 divided by 1, which is 480. 730 divided by 2. 730 divided by 2, which is 365. Then 875 divided by 3. 875 divided by 3, which is 291.5. 6, 7. Number 4, we need to rank. We need to rank. So this one will be equal to rank number 1, number 2, number 3. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Now we need to keep on moving. We need to keep on moving. We need to keep on moving. Now, total available hours. Total available hours. Ilikuwa ngapi? Aya. Na required? Ilikuwa ni 3,000 times 1. Mimi alikuwa ngapi? Sasa yenyewe hata mniambie. Ni bana. So ilikuwa kuja ngapi? What was the total hours? Kama niko peke yangu.
32,500.
32,500.
Aya, shortfall. It is 4,500 hours. Now, we start with the rank. Tuko na 1, 2, 3. Now, tukishatoka kwa rank, acha ni chini kidogo ndio itoshe. So rank 1, 2, and 3. And then product. Product, we have alpha, beta, and zeta. And then maximum demand. Maximum demand. Now to run is 3,000. 3,000. 5,000. And 65,000. Key factor per unit. Key factor per unit hours. Key factor per unit hours. We have 3. Not 3. It's 1, 2, 1, 2, and 23. And then required hours. So hours required. So in either form required me the answer. So 3,000 times 1 is 3,000. 10,000. Now 6,500 times 2. 6,500 times 3, I mean, is 19,400. Now hours required. So hours required. Then we say hours available. So A means available. So hours available ilikuwa ngapi? 28,000 hours. 28,000. So now we allocate those hours. Now the first one, we allocate the 3,000. We allocate the 3,000. So to allocate the 3,000, tabaki na ngapi? So to allocate 1,000 to allocate 3,000 hours. So we allocate this one, tabaki na 25,000. To allocate 10,000, tabaki na 15. Now 15,000 is available, which we cannot allocate 19. So meaning we cannot use 19,500. We can only use 1,500. Now we can get our units. So 3,000 units ndio hii. I have this one tutatumia yote 5,000. Now the remaining you divide it with key factor. So 15,000 divided by 3, which is 5,000. So hiyo imekuja the same. So others, so hii swali imekuja the same, but others maswali zingine watapata ni tofauti, but the format is the same. The format is the same. Therefore, our optimal mix will be equal to our optimal mix. This is how you do it. Our optimal mix. Now, optimal mix will be, so alpha achukue 3,000, beta 5,000, zeta 5,000. Tuko sawa hadi hapo? Aya, that one is fine. Now kuna kitu nilivuta ndaniambia. Now the only thing sasa penye ni tofauti ni the profit. How to find the profit. Now this is how you find the profit. Now kwa profit linakuja tofauti. Na answer ikwangi the same. So the answers will never be the same. So but zitakuwa zimekaribiana somehow, but not the same. Now we start with our contribution. Now our contribution najua ni 3,000 times. Now unaniambia contribution per unit from the statement tumefanya ya throughput ilikuwa ngapi? Tukiminus material cost. Mniambia haraka ndo tumalize tafadhali. Wakati minus material cost
480.
tulipata
480.
5,000 yake ni ngapi?
730.
770.
730.
Na huyo wa mwisho
875.
875. Na itakuwa ngapi? Tumepata 94,65,000. Now we less cost. The first one we less the fixed cost. Number two we less the outsourced cost. We also less labor cost. Najua ziko mara mbili. Ukumbuke ziko mara mbili. We have skilled and unskilled. We also less variable overhead. We also have skilled and unskilled. Now, once you less all this cost, this is what I think. Then you shall get the net profit. Now, doing calculate fixed cost najua ni kawaida. You can get from the question. It is direct. Now from the question fixed cost tunaona ni 1450,000. 1450,000. Haya, cost of outsourcing outside uliona ni ngapi? Nina miss 1,500 times ilikuwa ni 1,500 times 895. So 1,500 times 895, which is 13,42,500. Now, sasa hapa ndio kuna mambo. Labor, we have the figures. Tukianza ya kwanza 3,000. Now, what's the cost per labor from our statement? Labor ni 80, 160 to 40. 80, 160 na 240 na 240. Haya, unskilled 60, 120, 110. 60, 120 na 110. So 60 120 from question na 110. Haya, 3,000 na ilikuwa tumecalculate. Mbona pesa figure ya skilled tulikuwa tumesha calculate kwa statement. Let's go back to our statement ilikuwa tumecalculate ya kwanza kabisa. Skilled tulisema ni ngapi? For every variable overhead. Tuharakishe jameni. Skilled for variable overhead. Sasa hii ndio mko na hiyo answer. Ilikuwa 100%. The other one was 50. So itakuwa the same. Itakuwa ni 80 kwa sababu 100%. 5,000 times 160. 5,000 times 240. I unskilled was 50%. So 3,000. 50% of the 30. 5,000. 50% ya 120 is 60. Then 50% of 110 is 55. Let us see. 3,000 times 80. 5,000 times 160. 5,000 to 40. Itakuwa ni 22,40,000. 22,40,000. 3,000 times 60. 5,000 times 120. 5,000 times 110. 13,30. I have 3,000 times 80. 5,000 160. 5,000 times 240. 22,40. 3,000 times 30. 5,000 times 60. 5,000 times 55. 665,000. Now what will be our net profit? Our net profit, so 94.65 minus 14.50 minus 13.42.5. 13.42.
198.
Ati?
198.
198.
1,000.
197,500. Yeye tulipata ngapi? The previous one. Tulipata ngapi hapo?
Tulipata
Yeah.
197,500.
197
500.
kama hii.
Ni same.
Good. Now that's how you do it. That is how you do the throughput accounting. Any question? Any question? Yes, Palma. Palma?
Mimi sina swali bana.
I know Bongi. Benedict.
I'm good.
Haya. CJ unasemaje? Ngoja tumalize.
Kofiti.
CJ.
Hakuna, niko fiti.
Now we meet tomorrow from 9. Now I'm planning to maliza hii syllabus the next 1.5 weeks. Kwa tumemaliza kama ende zake. Now let us meet tomorrow from 9. We complete this one and then we start a new one. Now that is the end. We are remaining with the 3 topics that you cover. Then we see. So have a lovely night.